when I'm working, I can look out of the window and see freight trains that move by, because at our workplace there is a railroad track not far from the window, and on this railroad sometimes freight trains go by that go from the countryside to the city. And on these freight trains you often see graffiti, so you can look out of the window while you work and see many trains go by with graffiti on them. And it's a little bit like the movie Wild Style, and Zorro from the movie Wild Style, who looks at freight trains with graffiti tags on them. And you can think to yourself, why did this person make this graffiti tag? What was the idea behind it? And maybe you recognize a graffiti tag. So it's like museums on wheels that go by. Or it's like inside out museums on wheels that go by. And I can look at those freight trains and feel like Zorro from Wild Style. And I work at customer support service, so you take phone calls and you help the customer with their problem. And most phone calls are about reclamation, products that came to the customer didn't come the way they should, they were broken or missing, and that's the most common thing that happens. Also, simple questions are pretty common, but today I had a customer that is pretty rare. It was an older woman, or a pretty old woman in their late 70s, and she was unable to use the online service to make an order, so I had to do it for her. And it took pretty long time because I did it wrong the first time, so she had to wait for a long time, but she was patient and I helped her. And when I was done with helping her, she was very thankful for this. And when you help somebody like that, you really feel good too, because you made someone feel good, and that can mean a lot to you. So this happened to me today, and in between these phone calls you can look out of the window and I can see these freight trains, because at customer support service there is phone calls, and after the phone call there's a window when there's no phone call before the next phone call comes. So during this window you can look out of the window and see the freight trains with graffiti that come, not all the time, but maybe 2 times per hour or something. And also the radio here offers archives of radio sendings that has been sent online. So what I did today is that I went and listened to an audiobook that was aired earlier today, and it was an audiobook about a man that lived in the year 1877, and he went, and it's about him traveling from Germany to Japan and then to Siberia in order to study and collect butterflies. And he's gonna do this expedition, and he's gonna be gone for 21 years. So this audiobook is about his expedition. It's written by him, I think. So I am listening to this today between the phone calls, and he describes how there's this island in Siberia, very close to Japan, and on islands there are certain kinds of butterflies that only exist on that island. And he describes gynandomorphs, and what that is, it is a very rare sight when a male and a female butterfly, when a butterfly is both a male and a female at the same time, because male butterflies have one pattern on their wings and female butterflies have another pattern. And a gynandomorph is a butterfly that is asymmetric because it has one wing of the one gender and the other wing of the other gender. But even though this is the case, it can fly like a normal butterfly. And this guy here that is there to study butterflies, he has a colleague with him which is gonna help him, and this colleague is very amazed by the gynandomorphs and doesn't want to stop talking about it. And he asks the main protagonist, can they reproduce? And the main protagonist don't know how to answer this question. And then the colleague asks the main protagonist, or the colleague thinks the main protagonist is crazy, and then the colleague asks the main protagonist if this can happen to other animals, and the main protagonist says that this can happen to a bird called in Swedish zebrafink. And then the colleague asks, can this happen to humans? The main protagonist doesn't have a good answer to that question too. And they describe a lot of other things. They describe how they find a big green butterfly, and how the society in 1877 in Japan looks like, how the Japanese are very careful with the rice fields being very structured. Unlike the Europeans, the Japanese were more careful about that. And it's also described how the small villages in Japan, how they are at night with all the lights. And the clothing is described that the Japanese have very detailed ornamented clothes that women have there. And they also describe that they were attacked because they were on this island, and they were attacked by natives, but they shoot at them and the natives shoot back, and the natives escape, or they manage to get the natives away from there, and then they get rewarded with the box of 500 cigars good audiobook that I listened to today. Yeah, basically. I like my job, but I think the work days are a little bit too long. And I really like to have this time between phone calls, when you can just listen to audiobooks and look out of the window and see these freight trains with graffiti on them, and very colorful graffiti. I saw one the other day that said hip hop with big letters, and then you can really feel like Zorro from Wild Style. Yeah, you can really feel like Zorro from Wild Style